Good morning, Year 4. Here's Friday's English lesson where we're going to continue writing our newspaper reports that we started yesterday. So, carrying straight back on then. Yesterday we wrote our catchy headline, we wrote our paragraph 1, where we thought about the chronological order, and we also wrote our orientation, okay, the first paragraph there to give information of the who, the what, the when, the where, and possibly the why. So today we are up to our paragraph 2, and again I've got my plan here so that I know exactly what information I'm going to need to include in. And I know from the success criteria that what goes into paragraph 2 is perhaps a comment or a quote from an eyewitness, okay? Somebody that was there at the raid that saw everything that went on, okay? So I want you to have a think about, to start with for today's lesson, what might an eyewitness say and who might say it? Who might have witnessed it? So on our plans, we thought about who might have been there. So perhaps the girl with plaits who tried to defend herself might be your choice of an eyewitness. Perhaps one of the men who had gone fishing for the herring and they came back and found their houses raided. They might be one of the eyewitnesses. Perhaps one of the terrified villagers might be an eyewitness. Okay, it could be somebody from a neighbouring village, perhaps, who have heard of what has happened and have seen the village themselves. Okay, so lots of different examples that you could choose from. And I would say today, picking just 2 of those is probably going to be more than enough. Okay, so if they're going to be saying something, we're going to need to think really carefully about which pieces of punctuation we're going to need to use in our writing. And we know that inverted commas or speech marks, as you've probably heard them more commonly known, are the ways that we show in our writing that somebody is talking. So I've provided you an example here. The one above the blue line is my first example. And it says, I saw a strange boat down on the water, but didn't think much of it, claimed one terrified villager. Okay, so you can see I've got my inverted comma to start with, my speech mark to start with. I've then got the speech in red here to show these are the things that the character or the eyewitness would say. I've then got a comma to show that that's the end of the speech part with my quotation, my inverted comma speech mark there. And then in the black writing, so that it stands out, as you can see that it's different, this is the bit that tells the reader who said it. And that's just as important too. Okay, so I've done that exactly the same for my next example. So you can see here, this might be another person as an eyewitness. I wanted to defend my house, so I hit one of them with a ladle. Unfortunately, he retaliated and knocked me out, recalled one brave girl. Okay, and again, the same pieces of punctuation that you will see. So I've got my speech mark here, my speech that they're going to say in red with my comma, and my ending speech mark there. And instead of saying said, I've chosen a different word there, recalled. Okay, one brave girl. That means she's remembering what happened when you recall something. Okay, so because that's quite a lot of punctuation to remember, I've popped this picture here for you to kind of help guide you when it comes to doing your writing today. And your hand is going to be really, really helpful in helping you to do that. So I know that I've got 5 fingers on my hand, and I know I've also got a palm on my hand. So there's 6 parts of my hand, okay? And those are the 6 jobs that I need to do in a sentence when I use speech. So my first job, as you can see on the thumb there, is going to be my speech punctuation, okay? Using that opening inverted comma to show that speech is starting, okay? Once I've done that, I know the next thing is that every piece of speech will start with a capital letter. So I know that I need a capital letter next. Then I need to write the text, the words that the eyewitness will be saying. Then I'm going to need another piece of punctuation. So that could be a comma on the 2 examples that you've just seen. It could be a question mark if they're asking a question. It could be an exclamation mark if they're quite excited or cross or showing some sort of emotion. We might use a question mark, or it could simply be a full stop. But you would use one piece of punctuation there, depending on what they're saying. And then finally, you would use your final piece of speech, okay, your closing speech mark there to show that they've finished speaking. And then your final job is to say who said it. Now I know using the word said all the time is quite dull and quite boring. So I'm going to ask you to think about different words that you could use for said instead. Okay, and I'm looking for those in your writing today. So if we're going to use our hands to help us, and each of those 6 jobs are going to do that, I want you to give it a bit of a practice. So I've popped some vocab words here so that you don't have to think too much about different words for said. You could use claimed, sobbed, wailed, recalled, recollected, informed, threatened, lots of different words for you to choose from. Okay, I want you to have a bit of a practice today. So just on a scrap piece of paper or a whiteboard if you're lucky enough to have one at home, that's what you would be doing at school. I want you to jot down an example sentence to show what one of those eyewitnesses would say. Okay, remember, use your hand as a guide to make sure that you've got all of that information in there. Okay, so pause now and have a practice. Okay, how did you do? Hopefully you've got all of those jobs there. I'm going to share with you my practice sentence, okay? And the eyewitness I'm going to be using today is going to be that young girl, okay? The one that used the ladle to try and defend herself, okay? The girl with plaits. So I know my first job, I've already got that there, is my speech, okay? My opening speech mark there. And in fact, I'm going to have to get rid of these lines here so that I can type in them. So the first job, I've got my speech marks. Then I need a capital letter. So I need to think about the word that the words that the character is going to say. Now I know on my plan yesterday I had some, so I'm going to use those to help me. She might say, I tried to defend myself. However, they were just too strong. Okay, so I've done my speech mark. I've got my capital letter in I, and I've used the words that she's going to say. I tried to defend myself, however, they were just too strong. Okay, so that's there. I don't think a comma is going to be the best piece of punctuation for that, because I think she's going to be quite upset and she's going to be showing some sort of emotion when she would be saying that. So instead, I'm going to do an exclamation mark. Okay, and then I've got my closing for my last finger here. I've got my closing speech mark. I'm going to make sure there's no space between that. That should go straight after my piece of punctuation. And then again, I don't like the word said, but I think she would probably be quite upset if she said that. So I'm going to use the word sobbed, which means the same thing as crying. So I tried to defend myself. However, they were just too strong. Sobbed a young girl. Oh, let's move that picture out of the way there. Okay, so I know I can then end my sentence with that full stop. Okay, so that's an example of a piece of of a piece of speech sentence with the correct punctuation that you might use. And as we've said in our newspaper report, there might be more than one eyewitness, so you might want to do more than one of those in your newspaper report. So now we've had that practice, I think we're ready to start thinking about the next section of our newspaper report. So we know paragraph 2 is going to be the next section of our newspaper report, where we're going to make sure that we've got the eyewitness quote in there, but also some emotion, okay, really making people feel sorry. So looking at my newspaper report that I did yesterday, I've got my 2 paragraphs still in there. So today I can see where I finished here, I'm going to start from up here, okay, underneath my picture. It might be that you guys have already continued up here, so you'll just need to leave a gap, a bit like we did here yesterday, okay, to show that new paragraph. Leave a gap from wherever you left off yesterday, okay. And if you need to go on to a second sheet, please do. Okay, so let's have a look at my example. I'm just going to move me over. So it is reported that one brave villager tried to fight off her attackers. So using that "it is reported" is a very common phrase that we would use in a newspaper report. And on the Google Drive, you'll find a word bank that will have some of that vocab there. So you can use that. I took that from that word mat there. It is reported that one brave villager tried to fight off her attackers. I've described her as being brave so that the reader wants good things to happen. They feel sorry for the people in this village, okay? More emotion in my writing. But before I went straight into the speech, I had to include this sentence to tell the reader that somebody is going to talk. Okay, it's now not the journalist that's reporting this, it's a brave villager that's reporting it. And to show that she's talking, I've got the speech punctuation here. I tried to hit one of them with the closest weapon I could find. However, he hit me back with his own weapon. Okay, and you'll notice those speech punctuation, my speech mark, my capital letter, my text, my final piece of punctuation, and then my final speech mark here. Okay, and then instead of using said, recalled the brave girl. So I've introduced who's talking and I've given the speech, okay, exactly what she would say. And you might want to just do one or two. Okay, I would say more than two would probably be too many. Okay, once you've had a go at that, we're going to pop it into our newspaper report. You might want to write straight on your newspaper report rather than doing it twice, and that's a good idea. That's up to you. Okay, so now you can see my newspaper report is almost finished. I'm nearly there with my success criteria, but the last thing on my success criteria, oh, we've got some vocab there that might help you when writing, but the last thing that we need to think about is our reorientation. Okay, the bit that kind of says what's going to happen in the future. Okay, using that future tense. So again, I can see on my plan, I'm looking at this bottom section on my plan. I want to talk about how the village is now in present tense, and I want to talk about what advice we can give the villagers for in the future. Okay, so I've had a go at doing that as well. I've said, once these terrifying torturers got what they came for, all was quiet. They left death and destruction behind, but it is hoped that they are now long gone. Villagers are being warned to keep an eye out, just in case. Okay, so it's a very short paragraph with only perhaps 2, maybe 3 sentences at the most, telling us what's happening in the village now in present tense. Once they got what they came for, all was quiet. They left death and destruction behind, but it is hoped that they are now long gone. Okay, so you see the change in tense there. It is hoped. Okay, what's happening now? That they've now long gone. Villagers are being warned to keep an eye out just in case. Okay, so for the future. So now that I'm happy with my reorientation, I'm going to put that into my newspaper report. And again, that will go in a gap. So let's move that out of the way so that we can do that. I will leave a gap underneath my last writing. Oh, I need to bring that in front. That's going to go behind. We don't want that to happen. That will go with a gap of my last piece of writing. Oh, I can't get that in front. But you will see, in fact, I'll draw an arrow to show you. So I know that that is going to go in this section. Okay, and again, you don't need to write it twice. You could just write it straight onto your newspaper format, but do make sure that you leave a gap in between this last paragraph so that we can see it's a separate paragraph. Okay, once you've done that, your final job is to check that you've got all of your success criteria there. Okay, I know your plan will have helped you to do that. So you've got all of the sections needed. Have you got the vocab that you need as well? Have you got words that will make the villagers sound really unfortunate? Okay, they're scared and worried. If you haven't, could you edit those in? Have you got some vocab that describes your warriors as being tough and vicious? And if not, you can add those in as well. Okay, so that's your task for today. By the end of the lesson today, you will have completed your newspaper report where you will have all sections in there, you will have the vocab choices, and then you could even add your picture at the end there as well. Okay, don't forget to send them in. I can't wait to see them. Have fun, guys. See you next week.